Welcome to our latest for Mirror Engine. We have so many features packed into this that I'll definitely need to spread things out over a few videos. And so to walk you through, I'm going to start with this template here and our player controller, and then dive in deep on some aspects here and kind of whatever comes to mind, because I think we have something like 1,800, almost 2,000 commits since the last release, which was roughly July or so. One thing you might notice, actually you will not notice, is that a lot of the internals have been rewritten probably 15 times or so, because every time we ran into some issues with Godot, if you've tracked with us for a while, and not that Godot is bad, it's a great engine, just got to use the right tool for the job. And then we started this rewrite about 1.5 years ago, give or take. And so whenever we've hit a wall of this is slowing down, this is not working, it's not been like, okay, let's power through just to get something out. It's been more like, stop, hold up, we are getting this fixed, we are figuring it out. And then it's really painful to keep on pushing releases back, because we get a lot of interest, we get a lot of you who are very excited, which we're deeply grateful for. So I hate to say, hey, gotta wait a bit longer, and I know my timelines haven't been as concrete as I've hoped, but that's because I don't want you to have to suffer through features that don't work. So without rambling too much, let me go ahead and jump in on our player controller, and then I'll walk you through some of the other cool stuff that we had. First of all, what you'll notice, if you go to my page, this is actually a template that you'll be able to copy, and that's the fun part about this, is everything in the mirror will be interoperable, and so you can make games, you can copy templates. Our goal is to eventually even be able to combine games with stitching. So much cool stuff there, but point is you can just click copy here to make this game, or click make a game over here on the left, and this will get you started real quick with a template that I'll add here after this video. But this is just our new base template for creating a game. Let's hop back over here to this demo player controller though. And so you may notice some of these assets already. These came from our V1, which was built on Godot. And a big thank you to Wuotan Studios for some of these buildings. And then also thank you to Quaternius for this character model here in these animations, which you may recognize. I actually just imported this in Mirror Engine, unpacked the GLB, which this does all for you. And then when I say like all for you, like of course it's obvious, the game engine does that. But everything is actually networked behind the scenes, fully multiplayer. Our goal is to be a multiplayer engine. I love Inception. I love that feeling of like you're building a world together. That's what we're really trying to go after, and so that's why I've started to use the term a bit around mirroring your dreams. Just build worlds. It's so much fun, and it's not just fun by itself, but it's like next level fun whenever you're doing it with your friends. And so that's our goal here. And so there may be some, if you're deep in the game dev world, some things I say here may sound obvious, but always know the caveat that it's networked. It's all real time. It's mirrored. It's fully multiplayer. Trying to be as instantaneous as possible. So, we imported the GLB here that unpacks. If you've used Unity, you're used to unpacking GLBs or other engines, of course. But point is, we added a new GLB unpacking feature. Blah, blah, blah. That's normal. But what's fun about it is that a lot of it has been trying to make sure we do the architecture right. And so this will now, in previous versions, if you've been in our alpha since roughly April, July-ish, this would just unpack the GLB into one entity, and that was just kind of like a blob that you couldn't really do much with. But now whenever you actually import the GLB here, this will create the full mesh. And so we have every piece of this mesh here, and that's defined as an entity. And then you can do whatever you want with that, such as adding components, for example. So this is his hand here. So for example, I haven't even tried this. I'm just messing around for fun. Boom. We got if you want to add a flashlight, you can attach an object, attach an entity, or just make his hand a light there. Kind of whatever you want to do. You'll also notice, if I'm not stating too much obvious, is that he's running. But you're like, why is he running? Because he's not. There's no controller hooked up to him. Well, at least I'm not pressing any keys. Correct. And so reason being, I'll dive into the player controller shortly. But this was another one of those things where there's so many features in this release that was like, well, if we do this, might as well do this, might as well do this. And just this iceberg, this chain of stuff that's like, well, if we add XYZ, then we need ABC as well. So like, you know, for example, if we're going to have a player controller, which of course you need to make a game, but then if you don't have animations, then that's a huge issue too. But then it's like, okay, well, we're doing animations here, so why not just do animation blend trees? And so that's actually what's going on here. So obviously I don't have a script controlling him. I do have a script controlling him, but it's actually being controlled now by my UI right here. And so, for example, what we did here, we'll go a bit more in depth on this in the future with customizable parameters, but I just defined two here, X and Y. So that's roughly mapping to what I'm doing on my keyboard, WASD for left, back, right. And so if I think of Y as forward in this case, then there's my dude running forward. This is just an animation that I unpacked from the GLB. So I'm using this jog forward loop. And so I do here, this X value is set to 0, think of that as left and right. And then so Y is set to 1, think of that as forward. And so that's the animation that's playing when Y is 1. So the more I track back to 0, then he's in his idle state for 0, 0. The more I track to 1 there on the Y-axis, then he starts running. And then, so for example, we start combining that. So this over here on the right is our jog forward right loop. So just like if you're used to building stuff in Unity, then this will be very familiar to you. So we go over here on the right, that automatically blends together. Like in Godot, for example, and some other engines, you can design some pretty complex like state graphs with transitions and whatnot. You can do that. In my opinion, that was actually a lot more complex than just doing blend trees. I think this is quite a more simple and elegant solution here. And so we may add transitions and stuff in the future and more of a state graph approach. If that's something you want, let us know. I'm definitely happy to consider it. But I wanted like a kind of a way you could just kind of throw stuff in there, get it working in a pretty obvious way that wouldn't leave you guessing or like wouldn't break easily in case, hey, I forgot to drag an arrow from this transition part to this or things like that. So this is just one animation group here. Might clarify the naming, but think of it as a group for default, just for running. Then we also have an error state. And so that'd be where he's just loop jumping there. And so we have 0, 0 for the parameters. Our script, we hook up that he's in an error state whenever you press the spacebar. And how do we know if you press the spacebar? Well, we have a nice new controls menu over here. And so this will actually map instantly in real time. So you can see what you are actually mapping here. So for example, I custom defined Shift W for sprint here. And then so this action sprint will actually get sent to my script. But before we jump into the script, just press B real quick. And now we are actually running around as this dude. Press B to toggle between build mode and play mode. And so here's that mapping. So I'm pressing W, which maps to forward, WA, so there's our jog right, WD, there's our jog to right, jog left previously, S for back, and so forth. And then I can also do our sprint. That's kind of buggy there. We can improve that. Oh yeah, that's not looping. That's great. Oh man, I think that's just a script issue actually. Script issue, I mean like with my literal in-game script, not an engine issue. And so now I press space and that transitions to our jump state. So that's nicely working there. So I can just, whenever it touches the ground, that'll then revert. This is all controlled via script. So I'll press B again, and this will snap us out of play mode back into build mode. And so what I can do then is if I go over here to our scripting, we are a TypeScript game engine. If you haven't checked us out before, we get this question a lot of like, hey, why on earth are you TypeScript? It's arguably the #1 language in the world. Technically JavaScript is, but it's a much, much, much more elegant version of JavaScript, much more sane, I would say, just for everything you can do and intentionally not do with it, because like changing variables all the time is not wise, in my opinion. But anyway, so I digress. We have TypeScript here. It's all actually live reloaded too. And so key thing here, if you are in our alpha using the engine right now, go over here to script. And so very importantly, you'll notice that, new feature as well, all of these up here map to different components that are attached to the entity. So for example, if I wanted to search for lights, filter those, and I can just press that. You can press it again, it'll turn red, and that'll actually filter out lights. Kind of nice there. And so we want to help you develop things really quickly. So I'll press this again here and go back to our player script. Now, very importantly, we have the player script, but notice these this green link icon here. That means the script is actually attached to the player, technically to this selected entity right here, this player. It's only attached to that. And of course, you can traverse up the hierarchy, traverse down, target certain entities / nodes that you may need. But that's very important because if I don't have this entity selected, then when I open script itself, you'll see that this green icon is not there. And so all we need to do for our player controller then is attach this input script and attach this player script. And this is a full-blown scripting engine, so you can do whatever you want. It's a standard file system. I'll do more on another video on that later. And also you'll notice that this player utils file right here. Here, this is actually imported, and then it has its own module registry system within the engine itself. So that pulls in player utils, but notice it's not actually attaching. Key reason is because the player script does extend mirror script right here. So that's a script that attaches to an entity then. If I go over to player utils, these are really just literally utility functions, which does not extend a mirror script. And so there's no entity to attach it to, so thus this little attach icon will not appear. And I'll add more to the UI to make sure that this is pretty clear and pretty easy. So we'll dive more deep on the script later if you'd like, but because our intent is like, we want you to just be able to, boom, start creating this game, not worry too much about the character controller, but modify it to your pleasing. And so incoming in a future release too, but already laying the groundwork for a bit, are player attributes. So you can define an attribute with add attribute in JSDoc format, and this will appear over here on the left. So if you come from Unity, you are very familiar with this. And then any entity that's attached to that script. So for example, let's say speed right here. If I want to attach this script, say to a boss monster later, then I'm going to want a different speed for that boss, not the same, but I don't want to create a totally different script. So then you can reuse the script. You just attach that script to the boss entity and then change the attribute here. Now, of course, this isn't something that's there just yet. This is a bit of a preview. Just wanted to show that it's kind of there on the roadmap. It's partially implemented, still a lot getting tuned behind the scenes. Key next part is the multiplayer, which we want to make sure that that is well synced, because of course, when you get into state sync for scripts that are running in real time across tens, maybe even hundreds of players, we really want to make Mirror Engine scale. You've got to do a lot to make sure that that plays nicely and everything works well. So a lot of technical challenges we're solving. And so at this point, I'm really just rambling. We have so much fun stuff in store, a lot of features coming in the pipeline, but I wanted to give you kind of a quick highlight video on some of the cool stuff that we're doing here with Mirror Engine V8. Of course, there's a lot still to be implemented, but hey, if you want, you could go ahead and say, like, add a gun to this controller, turn it into a first-person player controller. We already have physics implemented. There's so much you can do here. And also, in a previous video, I briefly covered that we also generate collision shapes automatically. So you saw me run up the stairs, and that's already done for you out of the box. Click View Shapes here. Boom, that's already there. Do be cautious if you generate shapes for too big of a 3D model, or too many also rendered on the same time with the debug screen. These are all things that we'll aim to optimize so that it doesn't just break. But of course, this is an alpha version. But now that I'm doing this here, I can just kind of run around, and I'm now within this building based on those collision shapes that we generated. All really fun stuff, a lot of cool stuff. I'll leave you be. Be sure to subscribe. Would love for you to sign up for our alpha as well. Join our Discord coming out. Come build cool stuff together. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a good one. Cheers.